This juggernaut rally just won't stop. More new highs today. The Dow up 50 points, but every new high is a new high. But it's not just here at home. Stocks across the globe are off to a strong start to the year. Shares of BNP Paribas, listed in France and here, up 23% in the past year. And part of that run may be because of interesting new innovations around environmentally conscious investing. Jean-Yves Fillion is the CEO of BNP Paribas Americas, and we're pleased to have him here on Fast Money. Jean-Yves, thanks for joining us.
Brian, thank you for having me here.
Je vous en prie. Okay, the first thing is, before we get into this ESG investing, because a lot of our viewers are probably skeptical of it, I want to ask you broadly, you do the Americas, South, North America, Mexico, Canada, but you're a global company. How does BNP Paribas see the world, the global economic expansion, and this incredible market run that we've had?
Well, very actually positively, our forecast for the U.S. is still quite strong for 2020. 1.5% GDP growth, consumer spending confidence is still there, wages as well. Clearly, the U.S.-China trade phase one is going to lift some uncertainty. Brexit is happening. That's another uncertainty which is being lifted. Having said that, the volatility and uncertainty will be still driven by geopolitical, political, and social tensions.
So there's always room for risk. And of course, what you guys at BNP Paribas do so well is derivatives. I mean, you create products and innovate. When we hear about ESG, environmental, social governance, Jean-Yves, there's a lot of people that will roll their eyes. They're probably driving home right now doing that. Oh, this is just a marketing gimmick. Is it?
Brian, do you know how much sustainable bonds have been issued since inception, since the very first green bond a few years ago?
No idea.
$1 trillion. And in 2020, we will be exceeding the $1 trillion of issuance. If you look at this is for the issuer side. If you look at last year on the investment side, U.S. investors allocated over $21 billion in sustainable assets, which was 4 times more than what they did in 2018 and probably growing exponentially in 2020. Then that's a reality. That's really the real world.
And I spoke with somebody who said that in 30 years on the street, they have never seen a part of the market grow as fast as this, and including, it's not just green bonds. You and I were speaking earlier about, I guess you had helped a giant Italian company, Enel, issue debt, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the interest rate fluctuates based on climate goals.
Well, you are a fast learner, Brian.
This is fast money.
This is fast money. This is fast learning here. You described it very well. It's basically a sustainable bond is really providing economic incentive to both sides. If the issuer meets their sustainability metrics, they will continue to benefit from a lower cost of funding. If they don't, the investor will get an uptick just to make it up for, the metrics not being met, basically. But if
go ahead.
Well, if I may, I think this is taking such a critical importance because we all see what's happening in the world. Look at Australia, look at California. What's happening today has a social, economic, and humanitarian impact on what we do. And I would say the risk-adjusted return of the world we're looking at, which you do so well every day here, is mechanically changing.
I'm sure you saw Larry Fink's interview or read his letter. How important, how transformative is something like that for the industry we're talking about right now? Well,
we're very much aligned with what actually Larry wrote here. In my case, it's not trying to be prescriptive. It's really, trying to be aligned with what my stakeholders are looking for. Stakeholders, I mean shareholders, but I mean clients, obviously. There is not a meeting with a client I have these days, a corporate, institutional, where sustainability is not being discussed. But stakeholders to me are regulators as well. Media, by the way, you are opinion leaders, and this is why it's a privilege to be here. And last but not least, employees. You cannot believe our employees are pushing hard to see their company, including BNP Paribas, being more and more into the world of sustainability.
So the biggest institutions and obviously the world, but when we think about the Paris Accord and some issues that I think on the geopolitical side, to what extent do you think there's a massive divide in this country versus the goals of Europe? That's what we hear about. That's even though, again, the biggest institutions can drive, they can walk with their feet. And let's hope they do.
Well, it's an excellent point you raised. It shows you have actually a quite international view here. There is no question, I would say, Europe has been probably at the forefront of it. And you mentioned COP21, and that's very real. Having said that, I can tell you day to day here, the interest from clients in terms of sustainability is actually very, very vibrant. Just an example. A few weeks ago, we have the CEO of a large US multinational who had some quite intense discussion with a rating agency, came to us. We were the first call to say, listen, we might have missed this dimension. Can you help us reallocate our capital raising into more sustainability?
So it's good. It's good business as well. It's not just a market. It's good for the planet, but it's good business.
It's good business in terms of if I were to list the series of product solutions, sustainability linked that we have at the bank. We spoke green bonds, but you mentioned sustainability linked financing, recently derivatives. On the retail side, including with Bank of the West, we're actually offering incentivized loans for solar, for electric cars. The good business for us because we actually are number one in sustainable loans in the world, and actually we're top 3 systematically in green bonds, which obviously is very critical to the bank.
Some good numbers. Jean-Yves Fillion, the CEO of BNP Paribas Americas, his first appearance on La Vite d'Argent. Très vite d'argent. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, really appreciate that. Guy Adami, I think that's fascinating product and why it was so good to have him on. To link an interest rate to an outcome is fascinating.
It's brilliant. And, you know, it's interesting. This is a gentleman, if this was a U.S. bank, we'd talk about Jean-Yves every day the way we talk about Jamie Dimon. He's been at Paribas for, I think, 35 years now. But I think it's fascinating. And quickly, we had Halima Croft on. I asked her about ExxonMobil, and she made the comment about exactly what we're talking about. You talk about a stock that has lagged now. Take a look at XOM.